Oh, there you go. It's on the left side.
Yeah, do you see it?
Yeah, this is awesome. This is so
Yeah,
cool.
this is so cool. So hello, everybody. We're just starting out. I usually give it like 10 seconds off the recording at the beginning. But anyway, I just want to introduce like A, what we're up to today, and B, who I'm with here. So, because this will be posting on my personal Facebook as of now, but then we're going to share it everywhere. So you probably know me. I'm Erica L. Robinson. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist and naturopathic medical graduate. But I have a really super cool person here with me who's my new co-host of a very series. Yay! And our co-host by training, Alexander in the picture. So Jennifer Scott is a naturopathic doctor working in Hamilton. And from what I know of you, you've been in practice for you've been an intern and a doctor for like over 5 years now. And we met.
Yeah, including intern, yeah.
Yeah. And you're so really into energetic medicine, holistic medicine, homeopathics, pediatric medicine, and family medicine is what I've seen so far. Hi, Mick. Mick is saying hello.
Hi.
Add on to that, Jen, and tell us a little bit more about you.
So yeah, you kind of hit it in a nutshell with me being an energetic practitioner. Now I am a mom of two, so I have one in daycare starting school in September, which blows my mind. And then there's Alexander. He's having a whale of a time watching your picture. He's talking to you, by the way. And so for me, it's just I want to show moms and show up. Like I'm in practice right now with him. So it's great that he gets to be a part of my life as a practitioner and me being able to parent him while I'm here.
Yeah. Which kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about next. The whole purpose of the Hot Mess Mamas podcast, Facebook Live. So for everybody that's watching this, whether it's live or later on, we're going to be posting this both on YouTube and on Nick says he's cute. Yeah. We're going to be posting this everywhere, so you can probably tune in. But the whole premise behind it, and Jen came up with the genius idea, call it Hot Mess Mamas, because it's like, well, for me, it was two things that I was saying that are important. It's like, number one, I want to break down the stigma of the professional, because I think, or at least for me, I studied medical anthropology, and professionalism was created to actually knock patients down and to put doctors in a superior position. And there's a residual effect of that where people feel like they can't approach their healthcare practitioner or their healer about real world problems. So I want to break down that stigma first and foremost for clients and for patients. But I also want to break down the stigma for other healers, which is that you have to have this like I've arrived marketing story where, you know, you overcome a health challenge and then you become perfect and you never have a breakdown ever again. And like, heaven forbid you do, because then you have fraud syndrome, right? So that's why this appealed to me. So Jen and I are going to basically try to capture real life from mama perspective and talk about real world topics. So do you have anything to add to that, Jen?
Well, I think what really stood out for me, like calling it Hot Mess Mamas, which was sort of a joke because at the time I was in my pajamas covered in like puke and he was like nursing and I'm like, well, I'm a hot mess mama, let's do it, because that's the reality of it. Being an entrepreneur, we're not that 9 to 5 where you're on all the time, whether it's the kids are in bed and you're starting to do work, or whether you're trying to do work and you're being pulled in like 16 different directions. So to me, it was just, it represents my life right now. And I wanted to show people that that's reality. It's like you said, like, I want people to be able to come in and be like, I didn't sleep last night. I'm like, I'm here for you. I totally understand, and not feel that I'm disconnected from what they're feeling.
Yeah. And, you know, that's a big thing that came up for me when I first had my daughter, Alice, who's almost 6 now. It was like I would see naturopaths or other doctors that didn't have kids, and like, nothing against them, God bless, but they really didn't understand what it was like to have a kid. And they would prescribe things to me that I was like, this really doesn't fit my life or reality right now.
Yeah.
I'm a single mom in med school with my own business already started and my daughter, you know? So I totally can agree with that. Do you feel like you have more of a realistic idea of how to prescribe and treat now? having kids?
Oh, absolutely. Like for me, I didn't start treating pediatrics until I had my son, because my view was, who am I to be able to tell you how to parent your child when I'm not a parent? And that was really important for me from that realistic standpoint, because once I started having kids, then it was like, whoa, those treatments would not work, like not even realistic. And I'm a minimalist to prescribe anyways, but I'm like, the idea of not remembering my prenatals, yeah, that's reality, like mommy brain and all those kind of things. So it was important for me that once I started having kids, I'm like, okay, now I can treat kids because I can relate to the parents. Where before I'm like, well, I could treat your child, but I don't understand what you're like. I can understand what you're telling me, but I'm not living it. I don't know how to be able to tell you for sleep or things that way.
Yeah, exactly.
And sleep is such a big one.
Yeah. Fan saying you have an adorable boy.
Oh, thank you. He knows it. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know he hams it up, right?
He does.
It's funny because I remember being in like 4th year. I even remember being before that and like shadowing people in clinic and kind of thinking, oh, this remedy would be so good for this child, but having no idea that you really can't administer certain things to kids, right? Like they're just not gonna take it or swallow it, or it's not palatable. Have you, like, what kind of approaches or strategies have changed for you now that you've had kids and like seen the reality of being a mom of young kids?
So you can hide everything in applesauce. Applesauce is my savior. My oldest didn't even know what applesauce really tasted like until daycare. And he's like, Mommy, the applesauce you give me is not what I had at daycare. I'm like, well, that's because I put things in it. And he's like, oh, okay. And he'll watch me and he'll be like, okay, well, what goes in it today? And we have our tasty stuff and our not tasty stuff. So he has to do a spoonful of not tasty stuff first, which I make sure it's only on one spoon, and then he can have the tasty stuff. So that's been really big for me, because then I can do almost everything in powder. Or if it's homeopathic, you can really blend it in and not have to worry about them really tasting it, because it's already mixed in something. So that was huge.
What is he taking right now? What are your like?
So he does the 5 medicinal mushrooms, which is not tasty because he can't swallow pills. He's only 4. So I open it up and mix it in like 1 spoon of applesauce. And then he has his probiotic. He's on a Ravenous app, which is an immune booster because it's a prebiotic. And then he gets collagen. So that way he's having protein every morning. And it's all mixed in applesauce. So he gets 1 flavor and then 1 regular. So I mix everything in the flavor and the yellow one goes on top. So he gets to stir it too.
That's awesome. So good. So cool. Oh, I wanted to tell you, I got you a little gift. Have you heard of the movie Bad Moms?
Yes. Oh, that's so fun.
Oh, I'm wearing one right now. It says Bad Mom on it.
Oh, that's amazing. We're going to be awesome.
Bad Mom in the best way possible.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. It's courtesy of Maddie from Entertainment One.
Oh, well, thank you, Maddie.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I know the topic we wanted to dive into today was like around body image and really like body love, either before pregnancy, during, or after. So do you want to get started kind of jumping into that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So for me, I definitely hated my body before pregnancy. Like it was just, I had curves and I grew up with being told like, oh, you have like birthing hips, whatever that meant. And you're just like, okay, well that somehow is a good thing, but I don't feel like it's a good thing because I'm in like grade 6 or 7. Like this means nothing to me other than that's what the reality was. But then when I got pregnant, it was like, my body became miraculous. Like I'm growing a human, and it just shifted my perception because I really got to see why like your body is so amazing. Like sure, we learn it in med school, but that means nothing. Like you can learn everything from a textbook until you live it. It's totally different. And then once I had my first and had the ability to push him out of me, which is unto itself its own miracle,
Yeah.
My body image shifted because it was really important for me to show him, especially being like having a boy and now two boys, that I want them to see everything, like not be you have to be a size 6 or a size 0 kind of thing. Like there's a variety of different shapes and sizes, and be open to it and not see that as a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. And I would think too for boys to see that in their mom, and to see you loving yourself as opposed to talking negatively about your body, it's going to foster them to have a healthier attraction to women too, of any shape or size, or like not, that probably won't even enter the equation for them, you know?
Yeah, they don't even really know. Like it's been like we just went to Great Wolf Lodge in March, and I've always hated bathing suits, and I'm like, you know what? Who cares? Like I'm doing this for them. No one cares. Like we're all too busy with our families and our kids. And before kids, that never would have even entered my mind. Oh, we bumped ourselves.
Aww. Are you at the office right now?
Yeah, I am.
So
you just don't see like the foam mats everywhere on the floor.
Are you able to give us a tour, or would it mess up the camera?
No. So that's the corner. Then we have the treatment table.
Nice.
Then we have the supplements and copious amount of books, and then the other wall.
That's a lot of supplements. That's awesome.
It is, and 90% of them I can dose for children. So that's the nice thing, because they're mostly homeopathics and in liquid or powders. So it's nice that way.
So good. So you can give them to both mom and baby if you need to.
Yes. And sometimes I only have to dose mom, but it's nice to be able to have the ability to just, okay, something's coming up with your child, then let's just dose them. And those tiny little bottles last forever because they don't have to take them a long time.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. So yeah, to kind of recap what you were saying about body image, I like your perspective is so interesting to me, because I usually hear the opposite, which is people like their body before pregnancy and then dislike their body after. I mean, I can't stop hearing ads on the radio for the mommy makeover in Toronto.
Oh, I know, it's terrible.
A butt lift and a tummy tuck. So I think it's like all 3 surgeries done at once. So it's like, clearly we have a lot of women having a complex about their body after pregnancy. But I really like the way that you're framing it, which is like before you felt like that, but then you saw and felt firsthand how miraculous the human body can be. Just so cool.
Well, and that's a big part of it is with like I have mom friends who are like, oh, you need a cream for stretch marks and anything. And I'm like, no, I earned those. Like I earned them with 2 pregnancies, and I'm okay with that because they mean something to me more than just being lines. Like those were little people in me, and now they're growing up and I get to see them change, which is so true. I do have that reverse perspective that I usually hear the reverse, where people are like, I had the flat abs and everything. I'm like, I don't have abs. I never had abs. Like, let's be realistic. They're there somewhere, but whatever.
Yeah, mine are always buried under, I call them my lady lumps, like my lady fats. So
yeah,
my abs. No, I love that. I think for me, I had the opposite experience where it was like, I felt I was never in love with my body, and I had a whole post out a few days ago about how I always had a complex about how small my breasts were. So I was never in love with my body, but it wasn't like bad or anything. I guess it was a normal body. But then when I got pregnant, it occurred for me like I was getting fat. Like it didn't strike my brain like, oh, you have a human in you, this is normal. Instead, it was like, oh my God, I'm getting fatter and fatter and fatter. And it just like, because I had never put on weight before, I think it just triggered something in me, and I realized I actually have body image issues around my weight. Because clearly, like, a pregnancy is not fat, right? It's a baby. Mm-hmm. So I remember having such a complex about even just how my clothes fit. Like my underwear would like suddenly now make a line in my side.
Oh, that was so awful.
Oh, I hated it. So I like went to La Senza and bought these underwear that are like lace, so they don't press skin, because the girls. I've never stopped wearing them since, but like that's how much of a complex I had, and it actually began to alarm me and bring to my attention that I had this underlying notion. And then when I had a girl, like not knowing I was going to give birth to a boy or a girl, I had a girl. I was like, I really have to get this into a workable place, because I don't want to pass this on to her. And for me, it was like my my mom has always been dieting, like since I've known her my whole life. And
Mm-hmm.
so even worse, my Oma, her mom, has been dieting my whole life.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
3 years, right? That I've witnessed my two closest women to me constantly on a diet, constantly having a complex about their body. So it suddenly made sense, right? I was like, oh my God, I've never been fat. Now I think I'm fat. Now I'm having a complex. And now I didn't want to pass it on to Alice. So that's kind of more so my experience. I really, really tripped out. So
I'm just plugging my laptop in, or we
yeah,
will lose.
I'm kind of checking. Yeah,
There we go.
checking our live video out here.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, looks like it's working well.
Oh, you in a diaper. Tasty.
I think the other issue too that I really freaked out about was after I gave birth, things were normal for like 2 days. Then I had like a grade 2 pelvic organ prolapse, a bladder prolapse.
Oh no.
The bladder was like pushing out. People don't know how terrifying that is until it happens to me, but anyone oh my God, organs are falling out of my body through my vagina. What is happening?
Yeah.
So that really made me question my sexuality, if I was still attractive, if I was like damaged goods. Did you have any issues after giving birth?
So the first, so with William, I had like severe hemorrhoids, like just it was awful, and then healing took like a month. So I basically stayed sitting on like pillows and everything for a month because it was terrible. And with Alexander, though, it was super fast healing and not so much of an issue. Now, I did take some Advil and Tylenol. Now, I've never taken Advil. And after 3 days, realized I'm allergic to it. So I actually had more swelling from the Advil because it caused an allergic reaction, which was fabulous.
Postpartum, right?
Yeah, I know. It's like I'm already retaining water and trying to like get my lymphatic system back in place. Now, I would say the biggest shift for me for pregnancy number 2 was I saw an osteo. So I was getting osteopathic treatment the whole time. And that made a huge difference because with William, I didn't know because we didn't know, but my pelvis was actually anterior tilted. So it took so long for him to come out because of that. So he actually had to come up and over my pelvis to get out, which was fabulous pushing. So I had, yeah. So that ring of fire was a really long time. And then, no. And then with Alexander, he actually, from the time that I felt to start pushing, so like active transition, he took 34 minutes. So I didn't really have time to prepare. He just decided that it was time. So for me, like, it was really fast, but I healed really quickly. And there wasn't an issue because I think I was more prepared on the change. Now, I would say Alexander's was definitely more painful because it happened in such short time.
Yeah,
versus
adjusting.
Yeah, the hormone fluxes happened really quickly.
I know. I hear that about second babies are often faster than the first.
Oh yeah, they fly out. Literally, they're like your body knows what it's doing. It's just like poof, there they are. The one thing was I had back labor with Alexander that I had no idea because traditionally back labor is in your back. Well, I actually had it where it felt it down my legs. So I had been having contractions, but I just thought they were leg cramps for like 2 days. And then I was like, okay, well, none of the other remedies are working to get this going. So let's try the back labor remedy. And I took it. And then within like 2 hours, I had full blown contractions. So I was like, oh, all right.
That's
so amazing. Now, which is great because now I know when women are starting to complain about leg cramps, I can have that discussion on what are they really like, because there's your leg cramps on, okay, you just need magnesium or you're having Charlie horses versus that potential back labor picture that you're not actually feeling in your back.
I never would have thought of that, but it makes total sense, right? Because if they're pressing on all the back structures, it's going to affect the nerves that go down the legs.
And it wasn't sciatica. Like at one point I thought I had sciatica because it was like that sharp shooting pain, but then it shifted and I was like, okay, well, it's not sciatica anymore. So that made a big difference too, because a lot of women have sciatica and then I refer them to an osteo, everything clears. Well, in this point, it was like, okay, well, no, it's not going away. So that made it a little different for me too.
Yeah. And bringing up the osteopathy is a really good point, because I discovered the same thing. I had a back labor with Alice, and then I discovered like I was really kinked up, and I think it was more of a lifelong issue. That's what led to the pelvic organ prolapse, which is thankfully gone now. But it was terrifying to realize that, like, oh my God, the whole way I've lived my life and how I've spent like my whole life in school to that point, sitting like 20 plus hours a week, was probably contributing to so much issues with my alignment and posture, and especially with my pelvic floor. So I found that kind of shocking. And my pelvic health physio has helped like no tomorrow. But she's kind of like outlawed me from doing a lot of stuff, like from ever doing crunches, anything that causes like intra-abdominal pressure again. So I do kind of feel like if I even wanted those washboard abs, it would not be happening.
No.
Just out of me.
Well, and I think that's part of it is where we are positioned in healthcare, being moms. We've experienced lots of external healthcare, like doing osteopathy, doing pelvic floor, having pediatric physio, like all those kind of things that now when we see moms and babies, we have a different perspective because we now know when you're postpartum or even when you're still pregnant, what we can refer you to make sure you have the best pregnancy and the best outcome and foundation. Because that's another thing. Like I baby wear, which I started with my first, and that's been instrumental in making that attachment and the connection for him. And both of them, and being able to understand, he's super tired, being able to understand the difference in attachments and the styles of attachment parenting as well. Because I think you also co-slept or bed shared with Alice. So that's been, for me, well, I still snuggle with William too. But for me, it's instrumental because like that's kept me functioning.
I know, I got way more sleep doing that.
Yeah, like the idea of like getting up and then going back to bed, I would be awake versus or zombie, and then I'd be like, oh my God, I didn't remember getting up last night, and then did I? So for me, just to roll over and them to be in my bed is so much easier.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, I know, huge fan of all of that stuff. And I was just like reading another article, another research paper looking at how like people will say things like, oh, you're making them needy, you're making them dependent. But then they're showing that kids that have well-formed attachment at these young ages go on to be more independent than their peers who are not attachment parented. So I find that really interesting.
I love that because you formed that attachment that they know now that they can refer to you, and that like they know you have their back. So they can go and explore and do things, and then if they need you, they know where to find you, versus some others who don't have that strong attachment or the helicopter type of attachment, then that makes it a little, yeah, a little more of a concern in that regard too. Because even with William, he's very cautious to begin with, but then once he's comfortable, I barely see him. He just knows when to check in with me, or when I call him, he comes because he knows I'm there when he needs me. And it'll be interesting to see how Alexander is going to be as well. But it's a nice shift, and that also is a really big part of my body image too, is doing attachment parenting, because for me, seeing how I want that attachment, but how I'm projecting to them, I want them to feel comfortable in their body and honoring boundaries. And so William's a hugger, so we're now working on, you have to ask people to hug because not everyone likes hugs. But that's also part of that body image piece, because if he was always told no, then he's going to start thinking something's wrong with him when there's not.
I love that. I know I also just saw an article yesterday that we're a society that's becoming deficient in touch, really not touching each other anymore. In part because there's a lot of sexual harassment lawsuits going on that have terrified people, but also from a base level that it's lost in a lot of families. We don't have that attachment, parenting, high touch relationship. It's cool, that. And I was gonna say, yeah, you touched on a good thing because it's like they've had this well-formed attachment to you that they can go out into the world and know that they've got a home base that's keeping them grounded, or like they feel tethered energetically, like there's so much safe in the world for me, so now I can go out and explore. So it's like independence that kicks in. And I get exactly what you're saying, because we went to the indoor playground and that's exactly how William is. Like he'll just go venture off and then come back when he needs to.
Yeah, which is great because he never used to do that when he was younger. He would stay closer because he was feeling it out and being like, okay, mommy's watching me. What does mommy think? Like, is she going to say no? And now it's just like, oh, we're good.
Yeah, so cute. Maybe we can wrap it up in the next 4 minutes or so, just to make this one a little bit more palatable and bite-sized. What are your, this is another topic what are your new moms who are having issues with their body image?
I would say sit with it. Like really honor what you're feeling while you have a little guy or a little girl flopping around on you, but really sit with it and what's coming out. Like, is it for example, how you noticed that it was a family pattern. So for me, it was, okay, well, I was always told this one thing and not being the skinny girl ever growing up. So now it's just, okay, really owning that and understanding like you can get your body back. Like it's not that it's ever lost, but it'll forever be changed, and that's a good thing. So I think for me that was the frame of mind that I entered in with, was I'm actually probably lighter than I was when I was at CCNM because of my healthy life choices, because I'm doing it not just for me, which it's a huge part for me, but it's also a part of just teaching for my boys that to love your body means so many different things.
I love that. And it kind of reminds me of what my experience was too, which is that I think I really had to grieve the loss of my old body, or what I thought my old body represented before. And that's what you said, was like, can you just be with the feelings and see what comes up? What I tried to do first was just like gung-ho jump and be like, okay, I accept the new me. But like I hadn't even processed the emotions around what I lost, right? Like, and you do lose an old identity, right? And it occurred for me almost like a death of an old identity, so that I could be rebirthed into a more powerful one as a mother, and who's more connected to her body, even though it might not look as glorious as it did when I was like 18 and unscathed, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's like owning the bumps and lumps and all that kind of stuff, because that's who you are and who you became. It's like you said, it's that rite of passage, but you do have to go through that process of grieving or journaling, art therapy, whatever works, to be able, like I know a lot of people do the belly cast as part of that transition process.
Oh, I was going to say something else, but I can't remember right now. I just saw my sister-in-law, Leah's watching. So hi, Leah. Let us know if you have any questions. Leah's a new mom, too. Yeah, that's what I was going to touch on. Societally, so I was reading the book Women Who Run with Wolves by, I think it's like Esther Perez something. She talks about like the different archetypes, or like the different stages we pass through as women. And one of them is like we go from girl to maiden to mother to, do you remember what the other one is? There's eventually you get to like horrible connotation, but it's actually like a medicine woman. But anyway, there's like what I've seen is that societally we overly focus on the maiden archetype. So like the woman who's never birthed, the woman who's like pure and virginal, the woman who has like perfect skin of a 20-year-old and no cellulite, like hasn't been touched really by the experiences of life just yet. And I feel like even all the marketing to women in their 60s has traditionally looked like that. Like they're marketing anti-aging creams with a 20-year-old. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
I know.
A product where she's using it on her legs and she looks 16. I'm like, how how is that, a fit? And for me, I was just like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing in society. But I think there's starting to be a pushback from the boomers and the zoomers, who are like the really cool boomers, trying to say, like, this isn't cool. Like, these women do not represent us. They're 40 years younger than us. Why are we overly choosing this maiden archetype and not actually supporting probably the most powerful archetype, which is the mother, the one, whether or not you have children, but you're stepping into your mothering society and caring for it. But like, we almost have become disgusted societally with stepping away from maidenhood and into motherhood, like it's something bad. And I bet if we prioritized it more and respected it and cherished it more, we wouldn't have the kind of marketing that we have right now. Like when I think about when I was in Europe, in Italy, for one thing, like they really, really cherish and adore mothers, and mothers are looked at as goddesses, and they're treated with so much respect. And even the ads were of older women there. When I say older, like 30 and 40, which is not old, right? But it's like, it really saddens me that we're so obsessed with the maiden archetype who's untouched by birth. And I was really happy when I saw, I think it's Estee Lauder has like, they've re-invited back, or Lancome, sorry, they've invited back a spokesperson who's almost 70, and she's frigging beautiful, and she's 70, right? So they're finally getting a woman to represent the skincare line who's in line with the age who they market to. So I thought that was a really powerful outcome.
Well, and I think that's just it, is like, it makes it so much harder being a mom when you feel that everyone's against you. Like, it's all the ads, everything, it's just nothing's there. So we have to create our own village. And then can you find the right people in your village? Because once you find them, okay, do you click with them? Are they your kind of weird kind of thing? And that was a hard thing for me initially, because coming from school, you're in your own sort of world, and then you get set free when you graduate, and then I got pregnant, so then it was like, I have to find people. Yes. Because all my friends moved away, and those who had kids weren't close, so who do I hang out with? And that was hard, especially coming from me being traditionally an introvert. So I really threw myself out there, because it was like, I needed to find new mom friends. And now I have the best and most amazing support system of moms, because I actively had to find them, because it's not that society provided it, which I grew up being around family and all that. And then when we moved away for school and all that, and we created our own life, that it's like, okay, well, now what? What's next? Because traditionally you had family there, you had friends and all that, but that's not how society is now. It's like, oh, you had a baby, that's okay, but your friends aren't hanging around you because they don't have babies. And you're just like, what?
Isn't there such a divide, especially in the Greater Toronto area, between people without kids and people with? Like, I find that they're two completely different lifestyles.
Yeah, and you can see it. Like, you can see people walking down the street, and you're like, oh, okay, let me just like move my stroller over, because you have that quickness mentality, not quite the parenting, oh, are you okay? Do you need help kind of thing. Yeah. So that's been a huge shift, even just, especially a mom of two now, because with one, like, it was super easy because strap William on me with either wearing him or when he was old enough to walk. Well, now I have two, so it's navigating that newness, and now it's okay. My village has become even more important for me, but I made it. And I think that's a huge downfall with society for body image and parenting and everything, is we don't have our village anymore.
And that's the thing, right? Like, we would have all been together, whether we had children or not. We'd all be hanging out together, helping one another, right? Not this like weird divide that we're now experiencing.
Which I do feel there is a shift with people, like moms especially, trying to push back to find that village and create those pocket neighborhoods and things now. But it's hard. And then when we start talking about, okay, breastfeeding and other options, being around other moms, your body image falls away because you're all the same. And
Yeah.
you don't compare because you're like, oh, like if anything, it's like, well, how many hemorrhoids did you have, or how many of this did you have, versus actually like, oh, what size of dress are you, kind of thing. Which
Yeah.
is a huge, like, that's that maidenhood to motherhood discussion, or like, how many poops did you change today, like it. And that's the reality of it, which I think has been a huge change for when you do become a mom.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's funny because I found for me, I felt more normal going back to CCM or school, like really early in the game. Like, I don't know, again, I think I was still really attached to my identity or something before I had Alice. And I was like, I want to go back to school and feel like the old me. But ultimately, it did require, and like you say for body image, it did require finding like really, really rad moms. Because I'm like you, I'm not a typical mom. So I look for really weird people to hang out with that I resonate with. And it took a while to cultivate that village, but it's so worth it. And what shocked me when I worked at the perinatal center that I used to be at for about 2 years was I had like 192 pediatric patients and all of their moms and then some. A lot of mothers. And I was learning about these families who would just function as a nuclear family. So they would just have the mom, the dad, and the 2 kids with literally zero support. So they had moved to Milton not knowing anybody, no friends, and zero family. Like family would be across the world, like in BC or something, right? And they literally thought they were supposed to do it all on their own. Like that was the way the world worked. And to me, that's capitalistic brainwashing at its finest. Like, not to bring this too much into, that sort of controversy, but the nuclear family is the ideal unit of consumption. It's such a small unit that we have to spend so much money just to survive in that format. And that's what I was seeing these women do. Like, they were burnt out, they were exhausted. They had this false belief that I have to do this all myself, and their husbands would be away on business. So they were literally like a single mom with zero support. And they were breaking down, like mentally, emotionally, physically breaking down. And it was such a shocking concept when I mentioned to them, like, why don't you join Momstown or Famizoo or Mompreneurs? Like, they were like, what do you mean? I'm like, why don't you join like an actual mom community? Like, make some friends. Yeah. Like, it hadn't even registered as a possibility for them. I thought that was so mind-blowing, but that's where we're at right now societally.
Yeah, and that's like one of my really close friends, Katie, I met her at a baby wearing group, and it was like, I just came in and I was like, I am leaving here with some friends. I don't care. Like, I have to meet people.
That at the playground?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so awesome. I was going to say, we need to go there again.
And so that was like, we've chatted about it since, and it was very much like, I just came in and I had to meet people and just start talking to people, because I was that nuclear, like, Dan was back at work, and CCNM friends, like, sure, you can text and that, but you don't really hang out because they're all over the place. And then it was like, okay, now what do I do? Like, you can only go for walks so long by yourself and talk to a baby who's not responding. I'm like, I got to meet people. I need adult friends. Yeah. And so I just started going to baby wearing meetups and mom meetups, because it's like, there's got to be other weird people like me out there. There has to be. And now I have like that amazing village and group, and that's part of what I want to do as a practitioner, is start connecting people with those other groups, or even just connect patients to patients kind of thing, because you need that support, and we can't be a lone wolf. Like, literally, it's just not possible.
It's not the way that we were, even physiologically created, let alone, societally created. So it's just not how humans are. We're not solo creatures. Our strength is in community.
Maybe that should be our next topic, because clearly we could talk for hours.
Yeah, I know. I want to read the comment that Leah said. She said her daughter Julia is watching too, and so Leah's a new mom. Her daughter, my niece, my goddaughter, is 9 months old, and she says she just started a vlog today about what it's actually like to be mom. It's not glamorous, it's tiring, not all sunshine and rainbows, but so rewarding. Yeah, 100%, right? Like, that's
totally.
Talking about today. It's so good. You should share the link here, Leah. That'd be perfect. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, maybe we can wrap it up here for today, but I definitely think we should bring up this whole thing of community, because the last like bit I'll leave off with is I also found when I was trying to find mom community that, especially in Milton at that time, about 3 years ago, there was sort of this like competitive mom group. Like you had to be the perfect mom. And I think that's what Bad Moms is all about. It's about being in rebellion to having to hold up that stereotype of perfect mom. You know, they were always working out. They started working out like the day after they gave birth. They looked perfect. They dressed perfect. They wore all the makeup and jewelry. And I felt really intimidated and like I couldn't keep up with that community. And I also felt very judged. And it wasn't really a safe space for me to open up about things like attachment parenting, which in that time were heavily judged by that type of group of women. So I would love to talk about like, how do we find the women we resonate with? How do we, and I think because even those women didn't want to be judgmental like that, but they felt like they had to maintain this image. So how do we, as those moms, if we're trapped in that situation, how do we start being more authentic and vulnerable and breaking down these false narratives that we have to be perfect and dress and look a certain maiden type way, you know?
Yeah.
I'd love to talk about that too.
Yes, absolutely. And the idea of like, what is it like being an attachment mom? Because there's so many degrees. I've had a lot of like, oh, you must be like the hippie, like let your kids do everything type of mom. I'm like, oh, no, I am like very strict because that's parenting. But there's like an attachment behind it. So it's really having that big conversation of what is attachment parenting and what does it entail, because that, like, to be able to stop that false narrative, like, you have to know what it is to begin with.
Yeah, right. Instead of, because I think it was just like only the crunchy women who do it before.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You know,
and then there was the judgment: are you crunchy enough to be in our group?
Right. That was another thing. Like now, not only not the perfect Pinterest mom, like now are you the perfect crunchy mom?
Yeah, it's like, but I'm neither. I'm like floating in gray land of like I'm half crunchy, half not. Like what is this?
Yeah, I know. Like, can we just drop the labels in the containers and just like exist? Catherine Ann says she 100% agrees to the perfect mom statement you just made. That's awesome. Which one are you referring to, Catherine? And then my Mama Sherry is on. Hi, Mama Sherry. Cool. Yeah, let's talk about all of that because it's so. Oh my God. I feel here in Toronto, there is definitely like a contest to be the crunchiest, it seems, or like to be the most mom and the most involved and, you know, doing all the things. So I'd love to talk about that.
It's like that head PTA mom.
Yeah, exactly. Like the bad mom who had all the So funny. Anyways, so we're gonna wrap up for today, guys and gals, ladies. If you have any questions, feel free to post them on the comments section and Jen and I will respond to them. And then we're gonna share this video in other channels too, so you can feel free to reach out to us. What's the best way for them to reach you, Jen?
Probably either just posting on here or on my email, which you can get from my Facebook page.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Catherine Ann says, the judgy needing to be perfect. Yeah. Catherine lived like down the street from me in Milton, and like that, I don't know if I guess you were probably part of the same cliques or exposed to them, Catherine, but yeah, it was interesting. And then I had a lot of clients and patients who felt like that too. They're like, oh, I tried to go to Famazoo or Momstown, but then I felt like they were kind of snooty and stuck up. So that's kind of unfortunate, but I think we're tearing those down slowly but surely. Catherine says, this is the first time I'm hearing the term crunchy. So it's from the 70s.
I know.
Like crunchy granola eating hippies. So at first it was looked at as a negative term, Catherine, like you're a dirty hippie. But then it became kind of trendy to be more like natural and eco-friendly. And are you a crunchy mom? And Mama Sherry says, hi, dear Erica. I love this. Awesome. Thank you. Catherine's like, right?
But then it was a crunchy competition. Like you couldn't just be like, you had to be like, are you the crunchiest? Oh, you're not perfectly crunchy. Like you still use dryer sheets. Oh, you're out of our crunchy circle. Like it's all these things that you're just like, why are I think just we should do like one of these posts just strictly on why we judge moms. Like, why do we feel that we have to judge each other? Just support each other.
You dirty hippie. I love it. I think we sold a shower gel called Dirty Hippie at Lush one time. It's so accurate. But yeah, I mean, so for me, like I help with holistic women's weight loss and wellness, and my whole slogan is I help them get their goddess bodies by reclaiming the divine woman within. And to me, we're at a space societally where women have been trained to act very, very masculine. I know the med school model itself that we had to go through is very masculine in nature and competitive. And that's a competitive trait, a masculine trait is competitiveness. And I think we're only now starting to value more feminine traits. And it's not to say don't be competitive places like in sports or your business, but do we have to be competitive mom to mom, or is that actually inappropriate and maybe a space where we should be more feminine together and less judgmental? So that's really, like, that's why this is so near and dear to my heart, is because I see that manifestation being more of like third wave feminism, where women were trained to be manly, to kind of overtake men in the world. But I think we can actually give that struggle up now and step into being just as empowered as men, but with a different energy, with a feminine energy, including with one another, right? So I'd love to chat.
Absolutely. Like, even if we pull, like, once you start honoring that and connecting with that, everything changes and it shifts. Like, even your relationships with other women, with men, everything shifts because you're honoring your core values and bringing those core values up. And then when you feel that pushback, it's like, okay, are they just not honoring my core values, or did I somewhere bring a wall up? And being able to actually have those discussions. And it's nice to find those like-minded people to help you break it down on, okay, well, how can I honor my core values and still be me, but still show up the way I need to show up, whether that is in business, more competitive, or whether that's bringing baked goods to a potluck kind of thing. Like, where do you fall on that spectrum, and how do you honor yourself through that process?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's such a common thread, like, not, for both moms and for healers and for healer moms. And I think a lot of the people that we work with are kind of a mix, right? Like, most of the women I work with are a healer in some way, whether they're even a teacher or a nurse, so these things are important all around. So I'm just checking the comments. Okay, no, we're good. Yeah, so I think it's really, really important topics to speak to for females in general. So I'm really excited. Mm-hmm. Okay, I will wrap up for now. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Do you have any last words before we go out, Jen?
No, I'm just happy I made it on the call without puke all over me, so we're good.
Win.
It is. I'm mom winning right now.
And he's passed out now, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's sound asleep.
So good. Okay, he did so good through this.
He did, and then we'll see what the next one brings.
Yeah, no, I love it. We have to bring back this reality. And one thing that I kind of fought for during med school was like the ability to bring Alice places with me. So it's like, why is society segregating? We segregate our old people and our young people. So we shove our old people in homes, we shove our young people in daycares, and then all you see on the streets are the working class because we're the taxpayers. Again, not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I kind of am. And I think it's natural and tribal and normal to start bringing children to work and show them what real life looks like, as opposed to always like the same four walls of a daycare. You know what I mean? So I love that you're doing
and that's been instrumental. Like, even with William, like, you've seen him, how he interacts. He knows how to interact with kids, but he also knows how to interact with adults, because he came everywhere with me until he went into daycare. And even on weekends and that, I made sure it was important that he understands there's a certain expectation that you use your manners and things that way. And now I feel comfortable bringing him places, because other than he's turning 4 with the attitude, but there is that certain baseline expectation that I know he'll always meet. He'll always be polite. He will always honor that. Now, he'll still have his emotions because he's a child, but it's different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're like helping him grow with those and learn how to deal with those. What was the last thing I was gonna say? Oh yeah, I just read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, and it was really cool because it talks about how they did some studies looking at kids who were more successful later in life, like they ended up going to college, getting better jobs, making more money. And what they found was that these kids in the study had more what they termed entitlement. which is a completely different definition from one that we commonly use, which entitlement is like, oh, you're a self-entitled little jerk. What they meant with entitlement in the study was these kids were taught how to interact with adults, and they were taught that they are an equal to an adult. They may not be as wise as an adult, I suppose, but their parents actively taught them how to interact with the adult world. And because they were entitled, they felt like they had a place at the table and a place to ask really powerful questions and be in charge of their own care. So they would ask better questions of their teachers and doctors and so forth. And then they went on to be more successful adults. So I would argue that doing things like what you're doing of bringing him to work with you and you know, teaching William how to interact with adults is going to make him that much more successful later on in life, right? As opposed to constantly segregating him from the adult world.
Oh, he definitely asks questions. And as much as being a parent, I don't like being questioned because, let's be realistic, some of their questions are not nice. Yeah. But it's open to a degree that he can actually challenge us as parents and bring that forward, because we want him to feel comfortable with a respectful way to be able to challenge and ask those questions, like, why are we doing this? What is this? And again, it has to be in a respectful way, which he's for, like, he's learning that technique. But to have that ability is, I think, a key characteristic, because I know for myself, I was allowed to foster it, but then it got stifled in school because it became that I need to be that perfect child, that perfect student, and that perfectionism, and not asking those questions because, well, kids will make fun of you for asking those questions or whatever, not having that confidence to just be that way. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, becoming a mom has reignited that confidence, because I don't want my children to go through that fear of, what if I ask the wrong question, or what if I get in trouble?
Yeah, it's like it's almost occurs to me like a fear to exist, which is something like I definitely had the perfectionism, and then I like fearful of just being who I am and asking questions that I have without thinking I'm going to be ridiculed. Or maybe it's like, for the longest time I was afraid to talk to elders because I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to talk to older people. They're like, I'm not smart enough, I'm not wise enough, like I don't have a place. So I was constantly shut down around anybody who was even like a year older than me, which is ridiculous. So, and that I think was fostered because I didn't have that sense of being taught to be present and have an equal place and an equal share. So, mm-hmm. Michelle Hocko says she just jumped in and she's looking forward to the replay. Michelle's awesome. She's an unschooling mom who just started unschooling, and you can, if you Google or if you Facebook search the unschooling mom, is that what it is, Michelle? Feel free to post the link here. She's also the house mom, so she's a great real estate agent if you need one. And then my mama Sherry says, your baby is so adorable. He is so
Thank you.
Okay, we have basically a million mom topics that we want to talk to you guys about. I think that's clear by now. So yeah, we'll wrap up today, I think, officially, maybe. And we'll meet again next week and just keep plugging away at tearing down the false narratives and building up the reality and the healthy reality. Michelle says it's unschooling mom. So if you search that, you can find where she does schooling her 3 children. Ooh. Very cool. Awesome. Thank you everybody for watching. Please post questions or comments that you have. Yeah, that's it for now. I'm all good for now. Are you good to go, Jen?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay, we'll say bye, everybody.
Bye.